In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to test iframes using UIlicious. UIlicious is an online tool for testing websites across browsers. For today's tutorial, we are going to test the EventBrite website to register a ticket for a free event. So this is the website that we want to test, and to reserve a spot for a ticket, we click on this button over here, which loads the ticket registration page. We'll pick one ticket and click on the registration button. Now let's try to automate this test. Let's start by going to snippets.uilicious.com, and then we'll start with I go to the page for the event that we want to book. And then what we want to do is to click on the button for reserve a spot. Then afterwards, we want to select the quantity of tickets we want to buy, which is just one. And finally, we want to click on the register button. Let's go ahead and run this test. Okay, now our test is completed, and as you can see, we have two failures on this test. The first one is that the test is not able to select the quantity, and the reason is because the reference element is no longer attached to the DOM. And the second error that we see is that it cannot click on the register button because it cannot access the element register. And it asks, is it in an iframe? So the test is not able to select the quantity drop down and also click on the register button because the checkout form over here is actually in an iframe. So let's take a look at inspect this page over here and take a look at this model that we have. Let's scroll up and you can see this model is in iframe, and this iframe is has the ID EventBrite widget model, or it has also another useful attribute that you can use to pick this element, this iframe element, data automation checkout dash widget dash iframe. So how do we test elements inside an iframe? To test an element inside an iframe, you need to use the UI.context function. So let's modify the script to do that. To interact with the contents of an iframe, we need to use UI.context in order to switch into the context of the iframe and run a set of test commands. Now we need a CSS selector to target the iframe. Iframe, and now we need an attribute to target and be more specific about which iframe. So let's use this data automation attribute that we saw. And we want to select the iframe where the data automation attribute starts with checkout dash widget dash iframe. Instead of simply using a single equal sign, we need to add the caret up symbol before the equal sign to match just the start of the value of the attribute and not the full value. The reason why we don't want an exact match is because there's a random ID at the back of the checkout widget iframe, which could possibly change every time there's a new version of the website. So we simply want to find an iframe where the data automation attribute starts with checkout dash widget dash iframe. Now we are going to move the commands to select the quantity dropdown and click on the register button within the scope of the UI context block so that UIlicious will know that these are the commands to run for the checkout widget iframe. Now let's go ahead and run this test. And there you go. Now you can see that we are able to successfully select the quantity from 0 to 1 and then click on the registration button, and finally you can see that the register button has changed to a loading symbol indicating that it's successfully interacted with the register button. So that's how you test iframes using the UI context command.